Yo, top of the morning to you, wealth champions. Listen, man, the number one difference between winners and losers, or the number one difference between successful people and unsuccessful people, is going down, man. Today's daily hustle. I'm your boy, H. Cortez, the one and only financial health mentor, everybody's favorite fatherpreneur from wealthcreationplaybook.com. And I'm super excited that you guys decided to join me this morning as we break down the difference between successful people and unsuccessful people. Do me a favor, man. What do you think that is, right? There's a lot of misconception around successful people and unsuccessful people. And I want you to drop a comment before we get started to let me know what you think that is. Because believe it or not, there's a lot more similarities between unsuccessful people and successful people than there are dissimilarities. So y'all know what it is, man. The Daily Hustle is all about uplifting, encouraging, motivating, and helping you get your day started off on the right foot. So some of you guys might be thinking that, well, successful people and unsuccessful people, some of them, the difference is they just work harder, right? Well, believe it or not, man, unsuccessful people work really hard. I know that's hard to believe, man, but they do. Some of you guys might say, well, successful people just want it more, right? Well, unsuccessful people are motivated, man. And they have some strong motives. They have families that want to see them success. They want to be successful for their families, like unsuccessful people. What else might you think the difference is? Some people might say that unsuccessful people are people who, let me turn this down. Unsuccessful people might just not be disciplined. Yeah, there are some unsuccessful people that are incredibly disciplined in certain areas of their life, man. We're going to get to the major difference in a second here, but I want to turn you on to the book of the week. This is what I'm reading this week. It is The Magic of Thinking Big, and this is by David J. Schwartz, PhD. If you guys don't have this and want to grab a copy of it, I'll put a link to the one of my online stores down in the comments below. But I was reading through this just yesterday, and I was actually shocked when I learned the major difference, but then I started to reflect back on my life, and it all began to make so much sense. So I want to hit you guys with this. So basically, it comes down to how a person deals with defeat is what's going to determine whether they are going to be successful or whether they're going to be unsuccessful. And they made the comparison between three groups of people. People who are on what we call skid row. People who have fallen on hard times and they find themselves homeless, living on the street. And then they compare that to people who are kind of mediocre, middle of the road, and then the ultra successful. And I want to read something to you here. And it says, it is possible to match every skid row with a Mr. Mediocrity and Mr. Success on every score. Age, intelligence, background, nationality, you name it, with one exception. So what they're breaking down is that when you think about people who are falling flat on their face, hard times, you think about people who are mediocre, just middle of the road, you think about people who are ultra successful. If you take those three groups of people, you'll find someone from every nationality. You'll find someone from every age group. You'll find someone from every level of intellect. You will find someone from every gender, every race. You can match them across the board with the exception of one thing. And what is that one thing? The one thing you can't match them on is their response to defeat. Right? When when the fellow we call Mr. Skid Row got knocked down, he failed to get up again. Right? So that person who was on hard times, what they call Mr. Skid Row, living on the streets, they got hit with defeat and they stayed down. Right? He just laid there splattered out. Mr. Mediocre got up to his knees. Didn't get all the way up, but at least got up to his knees. But he crawled away, and when out of sight, ran in the opposite direction so he'd be sure never to take a beating again. Right? But Mr. Success reacted differently when he got knocked down. He bounced up, learned a lesson, forgot the beating, and moved upward. Wow. Those who have succeeded in a major way have been pounded by losing situations. Each person in this elite core of successful men and women has encountered opposition, discouragement, setbacks, and personal misfortune. It's how they dealt with those things that separate them from unsuccessful people. Right? I don't know if you guys are huge football fans. I'm not a huge football fan, but I can enjoy a game when it's on and I don't have a whole lot going on. Yesterday, I was actually getting 2019 taxes prepared. So the game was on, and I'm talking about the Kansas City Chiefs and the Houston Texans, right? And if you guys watched that game, you saw this play out like it couldn't have been scripted any better, right? Or maybe it could. Some people think that the NFL is scripted, right? It's crazy. But nevertheless, in the first quarter of the game, the Kansas City Chiefs found themselves down by 24 points. Got off to a miserable start, and the way they handled what seemed like defeat, what seemed like an insurmountable lead by a very good Houston Texans team. What did you see early in that game as that 24-point lead was unfolding? You saw a young leader and a young quarterback, Patrick Mahomes, telling his team up and down the sidelines. He talked to everybody on his team. He talked to the defensive players, his fellow offensive players. He talked to the special teams players, and he was just saying, guys, this is nothing. We are okay. His attitude towards, it's the playoffs. It's win or go home, right? His attitude in the face of a potential defeat is what kept his guys believing that they could come back from that win, from that disastrous start. And what did you see happen? They went on to score 7 straight touchdowns. Why? Because their attitude towards the potential defeat, their attitude towards a setback transformed the rest of the game. And that could be a defining moment in this young athlete's career in terms of what he does and does not do in the rest of the NFL, right? How do you handle defeat? It talks about those who are Mr. and Mrs. Skid Row, get knocked down and never get up again. Lay there just completely and utterly defeated. It talked about Mr. and Mrs. Mediocrity, Mr. and Mrs. Mediocre, hey, I'm just going to get up to my knees, but I'm going to crawl away and I'm never even going to try again. I'm just going to stick with the status quo. And the favorite quote of those who are Mr. and Mrs. Mediocre, it is what it is. No, it ain't. It is what you make it, right? But Mr. and Mrs. Uber Successful, not only do they get knocked down, and you guys know I talk about this a lot because you got to get this, man. Failure is a part of success. Not only do they get knocked down, they get knocked down often, they get knocked down more frequently than their unsuccessful counterparts, but they learn the biggest lessons from those failures and they continue to try and try and try again. So while you might look at somebody's work ethic and say, this person made it to this level of success because they just worked harder than this other person. No, they didn't. They worked equally as hard, right? You might look at this person who is at this level of success and say, you know what? They are more disciplined. No, it's people who are very disciplined and getting up, going to work every day, right? Doing what's required of them on their job, and they're very good at it. It's just that that's a mediocre lifestyle in comparison to what? Their actual potential, right? So hopefully, guys, this has made sense to you. Drop a comment below if you feel that you could be Mr. or Mrs. Successful, but you settled for Mr. or Mrs. Mediocrity, right? You have to look yourself in the mirror, and this is no judgment zone here. If you found yourself just being content with being average, you have to first be willing to admit that to yourself. And then you get around some people who will not allow you to do that. One of the things that I write on my mirror quite often so that my family could see is a simple quote that says, demand more of me. Now, when I read that myself, it's saying demand more of me, right? I'm telling myself to demand more of myself. When my family sees it, they read it in first person. It tells them, it gives them permission to demand more of themselves. But since they know that I wrote it, it's also telling them that they have permission to demand more of me as the leader of this household. My friend, if you got any value out of today's daily hustle, then I want you to do me a huge, huge favor. I want you to hit the like button on this page. I want you to hit the subscribe button on this channel if you're checking us out on YouTube. I want you to go ahead and hit the share button, man. Share this in somebody's inbox. Copy the link to the YouTube video and email it to somebody this morning. Someone is stuck in a level of mediocrity. Someone has been knocked down, hit so hard by life that they are flat out thinking about tapping out. Like, this is it. I'm not even going to attempt to get up, right? This could be a turning point in their life if you were to share this with them. Last but not least, if you, my friend, are in that place in your finances and you are trying to figure out how to get up, if you are Mr. or Mrs. Skid Row in your finances, you try to excel if you are Mr. and Mrs. Average or mediocre in your finances, then I want you to go over to wealthcreationplaybook.com, download your free copy of the Wealth Creation Playbook, and you'll get access to the 6 money killers that's keeping you broke no matter how hard you work. And also our instant pay raise video series will break down how 150 million people working jobs every day can qualify for an instant pay raise. They just don't know it. So we walk them through how they can do that. And I think it will transform your life financially if you will give it a whirl. So again, go to www.wealthcreationplaybook.com to check that out for yourself. Until I talk to you guys tomorrow, I want you to get your money up because you absolutely can do it. But more importantly, you deserve to do it, each and every single one of you. Now,